Hello everyone, Miss Vose is here with this week's handwork craft. Today we are going to be making these pleated face masks. They're really simple to make. They only require 2 stitches and they have this wonderful filter pocket if you wanted to place an extra filter if necessary. Like I said, this is really simple, quick, fun and easy to make. It'll do very well as a gift, and I think we're gonna have a good time kind of reestablishing some of our skills. Let's begin. So in your materials packet that you received from me, you will find a little sandwich baggie like so that is filled with little sewing materials for this particular project. In it you will find a piece of felt with 2 sewing needles, one with a larger eye for the future embroidery project that we'll be doing, and then one with a smaller eye for the hand sewing that we'll be doing today, and a row of pins, 2 strips of elastic already cut and measured for you to the proper dimensions, just like the swatches of fabric. These have a very specific right and wrong side, and they are just remnants of fabric that are 8 by 15 inches, in case you were wondering. They all should be cut for you. Simple rectangle, 8 by 15 inches, 8 inches of fabric. I think 8 inches is a good length for your ears. Elastic is very easy to come by. You can get it at the 99-cent store. You can find it pretty much anywhere. So, especially now with masks being very popular to make. So I gave you a second piece of fabric. If you happen to have some extra elastic, hair bands, if you snip them, that works well in a pinch too. But I gave you one to start with. You will also find a little spool of thread for this particular sewing project, as well as the one in the future, okay? So, we are going to take one of our pieces of fabric, both of our pieces of elastic, and begin to thread our needle. I will also be using an iron to make the pleats that are necessary, as well as melding the seam. We will be doing a simple running stitch, and I think we're just about ready to begin. We're going to start with threading our needle. Now, if you remember correctly from your time with Miss Jewel in the past, or if you've ever sewed in the past, there's this kind of sewing rule that we go from take one hand and touch our nose, and then we stretch out our arm, and that's about the length of thread that we are going to be working with. So we're going to do that. I'm going to do that obviously off camera because my nose is not on camera, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure from my nose, straightening out my arm, and clip off that much thread. That is pretty much 1 of 3 times that you will be using your scissors, because we don't need to actually cut anything. Now, like I said, I'm going to be using the hand sewing needle, which has a much smaller eye than the embroidery needle. So I'm going to choose that needle and begin to thread it. Threading needles takes practice, but it's a very important skill. Just taking my neat thread, placing it through the needle, like so, pulling it through to match the other end, just letting that needle drop, matching the other end of my thread, getting that nice and neat. Voila. And now we're gonna go ahead and tie that in a knot so that we can get ready to work. I'm gonna place this back in my felt for now. That is nicely threaded and ready to go. Put that to the side, and we're going to make sure that we have, along with my thread, we're gonna come back to that, because right now we're going to go ahead and start prepping what we need to do. So I'm gonna take my fabric. Now, it just looks like it's nothing. I just have a white background, but it's very important for you to know that because of the high heat on the setting, because this is all woven cotton that I have given you, I have it on my cotton setting, that you use something that's going to protect your table. This is something that is heat resistant. I just have it white so that you can see what I'm doing. Use an ironing board, use a towel, whatever you need to do. Now, first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take my remnant of fabric and I'm going to lie it vertically like so, and then fold it up just like that. Okay. My next step is to make this first little lip for the pocket, okay? I fold this down just a bit. It's approximately about 1/4 of an inch. Not very much. I'm going to go ahead and press that, going along the fold that I just made as well as the fold that I just made in the bottom, because that's an important fold to make as well, and crease to make as well. It does not take long, we're not pressing hard, just giving ourselves the guideline. Now I'm going to fold this over, flip this over rather, and do the same thing on the other side, just matching it up perfectly. See that? Do the same thing, press that, meld, meld, meld. Perfect. And that's the first part. Now we're going to start Now I'm ready to begin making my pleats. We're going to basically be tucking and folding, increasing, making the pleats on one side to be transferred over to the other side. So you'll see how we're doing it. So our first pleat is made just like so. What I like to do is I like to take this middle finger right here and I tuck that right underneath. Just above, I flipped it over, right? Just above, placing my middle fingers just above that crease that we made right there, that hem that we just made, that's going to get stitched in. I make a crease. I make a fold just above that. Do you see that? I'm going to go ahead and press that in. Take your time, please be careful. Do not touch your fingers to the hot, hot fabric, because it does get hot. Sometimes I like to use like a chopstick if it feels helpful, but for these purposes, I think that it's pretty easy to just maneuver this fabric and make the pleats pretty quickly. We're gonna make one more, do that one more time, again, just above the one that we just made. I press that one in. That's pleat number 2. We're making 3 pleats. So 1 pleat, 2 pleats. The next pleat is our final pleat, and it goes just above, really bringing the size of that fabric down, the length of that fabric down. Let's press that last and final and third pleat in, all the time reinforcing the rest of our pleats. It's becoming quite the accordion. Press, press, press. Nice. Getting a nice crisp folds, okay? I'm gonna let that cool because it's just a little hot right now, but you can see how those pleats are important to have it cover the face and go over the nose and create that illusion. So this is cooled now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently take it and open it, keeping my pleats. There should be going in one direction on the top end because we have that fold at the bottom, and then the other direction on the bottom end, okay? This is the right side facing up to me now. We've been looking at the wrong side at this point, okay? But what I'm going to do now is we're going to put in our elastic, and we're going to kind of sandwich our elastic in there so that when we turn it right back out, it'll be all handy dandy. Our elastic will be sticking out like so. How do we do that, Miss Bell? Like this. We're going to take our elastic. Like I said, we have 1, 2, 3 pleats going in that direction. 1, 2, 3 pleats going in this direction. That middle fold. I take my elastic, and I'm gonna make a C, starting just above that first pleat, okay? Just before it, the bottom of my C. The top of my C is going to curve around down to the third pleat, okay? What I'm going to do then is I'm going to pin that just like so. So like I said, that pleat just right there at the bottom, just before the opening, that very first pleat, pin that on. Very important about your pinning. We are going to be doing directional pinning, meaning we want to pin in the direction that it'll be easy for us to remove it and be able to do our sewing, our hand sewing work over, okay? So yes, put your pin in that way. It's very important that you don't put it in that way or some way wonky, diagonal or anything. Put it in straight so that we can go ahead and just stitch right over it and not compromise the integrity of our hand sewn seam. Okay, once again, there's that other pleat. We're going to skip that second pleat right there, go next to the very next pleat, the last and third pleat, and once again use your pin directionally, pin that right on to it, okay? Making that C. Do it the exact same way on the opposite side. Bottom of the first pleat, match it up, pin the head of my pin, which is of course the ball point. That's called the head of your pin. Facing out of my seam allowance, okay? One, don't know what that was. too. Making the opposite of that C. But let's make sure that we have that nice and flat, because now we're going to go ahead and sandwich those pleats back together. So now we're going to go ahead, now that we have it all pinned, C, other side, mirroring that, we're going to go ahead and sandwich this on together so we can start sewing. We're going to make sure that we match up those pleats again, okay? Pleats, 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 that's why we press them in. Just like we do on the bottom, and you can see it when we turn it around, okay? So, see how I'm starting to match all of that up, just like we would. Here, our other mask. So that's good. Make sure you get those pleats uniform. And that's why the creases from our pleats are so important. Good. Now, you have a limited amount of pins that I was able to give you, because 70 kids is a lot of kids. But if you do have access to pins, please use them. I know that Mrs. Jewel has worked with you all before. If you do not have pins, they're really easy to come by. You can get pins at, like I said in the past with elastic, you can get it at the 99-cent store, the Dollar Tree, so you're not feeling like you're having to spend an arm and a leg on extra handwork materials. But it's good to have, because, you know, these are all skills, you know. It's good to have the skill of being able to mend your clothes and make something. So, what's $1 in pins? Match that up, pleat, 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 pleat. You can see the sandwich. Keeping our directional pinning. Matching our pleats. And now we're basically ready to sew. Like I said, we have our 1, 2, 3 pleats on both sides showing, and we are just going to be doing 1, 2 seams, okay? Now I take my thread that I had prepared from before, and I just begin to sew. Start at this guy because I like to start at the end where it's basically the bottom of the mask, not the top where the filter would go in or the opening. I'd like to start down here, okay? So, like we said, we already had our thread all prepared, knotted like so, and let's begin. Like I said, we're just doing a running stitch straight across all the pleats through the elastic, just straight across. So running stitch meaning just short to get started. Straight across. I'm gonna go straight across like so, okay? Please take your time. I love hand sewing because it's so meditative. If you're not comfortable doing the running stitch as I had just performed for you, where I run and my needle in and out like that, you can just do the old stick and stab, getting a straight line all the way across, making sure, see, I just got through a chunk of elastic. Pen got in the way there. So I'm going to see you on the other side. At the end, we're gonna go ahead and do a knot, okay? So I'm gonna go stitch, 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 stitch. See you at the other side, we'll knot it and we'll do it again, okay? Okay, so here we are. I've stitched straight across. I have trimmed my hem as well. My seam allowance has been trimmed down so it's straight across, as well as the actual threads themselves have been clipped. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my iron, I'm going to go ahead and meld my seams one last time with those 1, 2, 3 pleats on either side. So just melt these seams so that they come together, just like we would be doing with a sewing machine. And you will see now we're good. Now's the magic trick, the magic hour. I love this part of sewing so much, is when you get to flip it inside out, or the right side out rather, and see how it's done. Give it a little poke right there in the corner. Out. Ta-da! You have just made a mask. I like to take it, give it one last press into shape. One last press into shape. Now that I have it pressed into shape, it pops open real nicely. If you need be, you can certainly put in a paper towel for extra filtration. Just tuck that right on in there. Like I said, there it is. Minimal materials, just a little bit of time to make a mask. Okay, so that is this week's craft. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it accessible and easy. Like I said, it just basically is just 2 quick stitches. It is going to be some pressing, minimal materials. I would suggest that if you can, get your hands on some additional pins for our future projects. It'll come in handy, just because we didn't have access to everything immediately. I will try to procure some more of those materials right away. In the meantime, if you have any other further concerns, questions, anything like that, see you at the Handwork Help Desk. You may also email me at winhandworkteam@gmail.com. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Happy crafting! Bye!